Hi, this is Christina Dubois, an agent, coming to you with a discussion on risk graphs part 3, that will involve the information on the very bottom of the risk graph. Probably some of the most important things that are available, really, for you to pay attention to. First and foremost is a trade plan. So important that you take the time and create a trade plan. Why did you get in it? What technical reason did you find? Was it just stock specific? Meaning, was it because you saw support and resistance issues, that you saw standard deviation bands? Or is it more related because of the sector that it's in? Or because of the focus that you may have on earnings coming? And again, depending on what strategy. But why did you get in? Deciding on a technical loss, you need to decide when you're wrong. So if you believe, in this case, Disney is moving higher, as the conversation was on this particular example. Let's see if I can pull up the risk graph here, or the chart. If I believe that we're expecting the stock actually, and I need to go back a little bit to show this properly, but expecting the stock to move higher, when do you decide that you're wrong? So that's an important part, is, if it breaks below the gap, is it because of a more short-term version of a moving average that you're going to pick if you're trading more short-term? But you need to give yourself a reason to exit if you feel that as a boundary for deciding, hey, I'm wrong. Then the target, technical profit target. Where do you think the stock's going? So where is it going? Technical loss stop is value that is decided that you are wrong. And then again, you can use moving averages, you can use support and resistance lines for that. Where do you think it's going? Again, can be based on standard deviation bands, past support and resistance, gauging. Many times when I look at a chart, it will automatically come scaled to a certain value. In this case, $5 values. When I look at Apple, for instance, it automatically comes up too, and I see that as a gauge of if I'm going to be more bullish on Apple. This is a weekly chart, by the way. I'm looking at right around 140 as my next target, if I believe everything else to be bullish on that particular underlying stock. How much money do you expect to make? To say 100% profit, well, in this particular example, that's not even possible. So based on your technical target, you have to determine what is the actual amount that you're expecting to make. Loss stop, how much are you willing to lose? Now, it's, one of the things we say is often 50%, but sometimes you position size this as an all-in. Either you're right or you're wrong. Sometimes, based on the technical targets, you may actually get out before a 50% stop loss. So you need to take a look and say, how much can I stomach if I'm wrong? Because believe me, you're not always going to be right. And then the profit target. I'm sorry, the position size explanation is the profit target. What do I expect to make? So let me go back to position size so I can just hear you guys saying, oh, she read that wrong. So sorry about that. But the position size is how many contracts. So based on how much you're willing to spend, which should be no more than 5% of your portfolio, then that's what you should consider trading. Now, some strategies allows you to get out like a straddle or a strangle with a little different parameters, so therefore you're willing to put a little bit larger amount in. But this is a great place to have a conversation with yourself of how much am I really putting myself at risk and am willing to risk if I'm wrong. Again, profit target is where you think it's going to be. In dollar amounts based on stock movement, there are some tools that you can use to look at that, looking at the risk graph to identify specific values, and then your time stop, especially on a debit spread. I love to put in that I'm going to trade to the green line when I first put on the trade. Now, it does differ that if it's in the money, I'm going to, and I have time working for me, then I'll stay in the trade with the relationship. Then I'm always evaluating the delta impact versus the theta impact, okay? But if it's out of the money, it's clearly I'm going to exit on the green line. And out of the money for me is when it's actually closer to the buy leg. That's an important equivalent discussion here, because you can say, well, Christina, what are you talking about? Though if it's trading at 103.50, if it's trading at 103.50, that's actually in the money. Yes, it is, but notice that time's actually working against me. What I want is to be past that area where it converts over. Therefore, it needs to be closer to the sell leg where time is actually working for me. So again, the definition for me is if it's out of the money, which is closer to the buy leg, I'm going to exit on the green line when I first created the trade. So if I created it on the 17th, I'm going to look at what the green line is when I first put it on, and then I'm saying I'm getting out on 223. So that's the conversation of the trade plan. Now, related to the risk graph settings, don't play a whole lot in here except for tightening up my stock view of scale. You can go to classic versus modern view. If you can also look at candlestick view versus the line view. And then if you want, you can also go in. And the one thing I do is I manage the implied volatility. I don't necessarily change the scale of the implied volatility. What I want to do is sometimes I want to see what's the impact if volatility goes up, what's the impact if volatility goes down, and this is the value that you would put in here saying, all right, if I think volatility is going to go up, I'm going to put a value greater than 1 being like 100%, the whole that it is today. If it gets greater than what it is today, then you're going to increase it, let's say, by 25%, 20%. If you think volatility is going to go down, then you're going to decrease it by that 20 or 25%, right? That's what we're looking as possibilities to look at. And then this is really a neat value here that if you believe, and I'm going to leave this as 1, if you know that you're not going to trade this all the way to expiration, and you know that you're really going to be looking at this more at the green line, which is on the date of 223, then you can cause that to be the last day, 223 being 3 days or 4 days to options expiration. You can go in and change that right here and say, all right, I really want to look at 4 days to options expiration. So I can click on Risk Graph 2, look at that, and what happens is your black expiration line goes away. It gets replaced by a more magenta color, if you will. And then all the other timelines are still by a third, but you can see there is the final view, 4 days to expiration, and then it takes the difference there of 6 days and it divides it into thirds. But it allows you to not get too greedy, to see the impact of what it would look like. And I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit or zoom out a little bit in order for you to see that. But then you can see the impact of the movement of the underlying stock based on 5 days to options expiration. So that's there for you to take a look at here by changing the risk graph days. I changed it to 4 days to expiration. If you want to see the natural, which is worst case scenario, you can turn that on. Mid quote is really best case scenario. If you want to sort a little differently, and if you have adjustments to the trade and where you're adding, buying, and selling collars, if you have underlying stock and you're ensuring that, that's a great place to do, to say, well, I want to look at not the date I put on that leg, but the expiration, or match them up to the same buy-sell legs. And then not going to explain this part because I honestly don't use it, and then the rest of it is fine except for the bottom, or a statistical probability. Now, I talked about this just briefly in that first part one, and what it shows me is if everything stays based on past stock movement, and it doesn't take into account any of your technical analysis, but it allows you to be able to say, all right, what is the probability that you're going to be profitable at different time periods of the trade, not again taking into what you think momentum is. So at the end of the day, I'm only going to look at this for credit spreads and very at-the-money trades like a non-directional trade, such as a condor, a credit spread, and an at-the-money butterfly. And I will speak of this as we look at some at-the-money butterflies. So guys, that's our risk graph, parts 1, 2, and 3. Thanks.